Hello, hello, NWI. Welcome to Bluer by the Lake, the podcast that explores region life through a blue lens. I'm your host, Tracy Martin, and joining me today is Jerry Williams. Jerry currently serves as Major of the Indiana State Police and is running for Lake County Sheriff. Jerry, thank you for joining us.
I am happy to be a part of this show, and thank you so much for the invitation and the offer to come and sit on your podcast. I'm excited about it.
Folks, if you remember from my last 5 questions interview, here's the deal. I create 5 questions. Jerry answers them, but he doesn't get to see them ahead of time. He's just going into this just as blind as you are. So, Jerry, my brave friend, are you ready?
I am brave and I am ready.
All right. So we'll just hop right into it then. First up, what is your proudest professional moment?
My proudest professional moment is pinning a badge on my 3 sons as police officers.
What?
Yeah, so
Oh, wow.
so I have 7 kids, 4 boys, 3 girls. Of those 4 sons, 3 of them are police officers. My oldest son, Earl, is a police officer here in Lake County, and he's actually a police chief. And then I have identical twin sons, which are the youngest of the 4, that are both lieutenants with the Indiana State Police, and they work out of headquarters in Indianapolis. Unfortunately, me and my wife, we suffered the ultimate scenario as parents that you never want to endure, and that is we lost my daughter Teresa back in 2019 due to some illnesses that she struggled with from the age of 12 years old all the way until she passed away at the age of 37. And actually her birthday was yesterday, so she would have been 44 yesterday. And
Oh,
so
very
disconnected from politics for a while, and me and
honor.
Dora went to the grave site, and we spent time cleaning and putting out flowers and visiting at the grave site in honor of her 44th birthday. Then the rest of my kids are very, 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 very fortunate. Four of the 7 have their master's degrees. 3 of those 5 have double masters, and all of them have their minimum of a bachelor's degree. So we were really, really proud of them. 10 grandkids, 4 great grandkids, and all of them, surprisingly, Tracy, they think I like them. I haven't figured that part out yet, but they keep coming around. And
We
so
just,
I'm excited about them. And just to get through this campaign. So talking about family, I grew up in Gary on
mhm.
the east side there, near a couple blocks from the old Emerson High School. My dad raised 12 of 7. It was 12 of us. 7 of us were underage at the time when my mother passed away in the late 60s. So he then became this single parent, raised the 7 of us by himself. So he became mom and dad to all of us, and even some of my nieces and stuff that were up of that age as well. And so he was quite the hero.
That's interesting because that's not the typical story of a widowed father during those decades. Most
Yeah,
men would have outsourced that to
yeah,
that was just the
he
social norms of the time. But
it
he raised you.
was. So as the story was always told, my mother had several sisters, but they all had their own kids. So nobody really could take on 7 kids at one time.
Mhm.
So each one of my aunties said, well, I could take 1, I could take 2. And my dad, being the old stubborn Mississippi country guy he said, well, if you can't take them all, I'll keep them all and I'll take care of them myself. And that's what he did. Never remarried, and he was quite the hero. Went and worked in those steel mills, retired out of Rockwell International, which is a part of Boeing. And he was a constant professional, and would give you the shirt off his back, whether he was at work, at home. When he bought groceries for the whole neighborhood. He wanted, when our friends came over, he didn't want nobody to leave out of that house hungry. So if he bought a pack of sergeants, he bought 2 more packs because he wanted us to be able to feed whoever was at our house visiting. He was just that constant, steady individual in my life that really did the really, really a yeoman's job to try and fill the void that I missed the experience of a mother. And I tell you, we all admired and respected him immensely because of that. He's quite my hero, and even in his past.
Let's keep going with that. Did he encourage you to go into law enforcement?
So So not exactly. My dad was that individual that encouraged all of us to do something. And my father was born in the early in the 1918, I think it was. And he grew up in an era that you thought uh as a African American growing up in the South there in Greenwood, Mississippi, that
Oh,
he would have a reason to dislike people or to say, well, you know, white people treated me this way, white. He wasn't like that. He didn't see color. He didn't see racial barriers. He treated everyone with the same level of dignity. We were raised in that fashion, you know. We grew up in a neighborhood early in the in the 1960s where I was raised there on 7th and Maryland and Gary. We were one of the first African American families there. But our friends and we did sleepovers, everything, and we just didn't understand anything else that was going on around us as kids because whether you were where it was black kids, white kids, Latino kids, it was a family affair in our environment. So we didn't know if there was other issues going on. And I really thank and applaud not only my dad, but the other parents in the neighborhood as well, because they allowed us to be kids and race, color never played a part in that. So I didn't understand it. I probably learned more as I got older, but as a
mm,
kid, my childhood life was the best, right? It was the bomb. I mean, it was skateboards and big wheels and tricycles to nobody's end. So and that's the way I raised my family. Yeah, the same way. You know, you treat people with dignity and respect, even when nobody else is looking. And so that's just the principles that I live by.
we'll switch topics a little bit here. What moment in your career do you wish you could change?
So not to get biblical, but
You
I
can
have
get biblical.
a strong faith in God. And even things that to me at the time I may not understand or I might say, man, I sure wish that wouldn't have happened or I wouldn't do this here. That's a very brief second in time for me because I immediately refer back to my faith in God. So, and I don't believe God puts me through anything in my journey in life that wasn't by his design. And I
Mm,
try not to question that ever, you know. And so good, bad, or indifferent, there's a reason for everything. And where we were put to test as a family. When my daughter passed away, it hit us, as you could imagine, like a brick. My daughter Teresa was quite a daddy's girl, you know,
mhm.
so she was so too
Yeah.
sickly
Oh,
to really work like normal people. But we stayed in constant contact. She would ring my phone, and I'm not exaggerating, 10, 15 times a day. And that was okay with me, even when I was at work. She'd call, I know it's her because of call ID. And she'd say, Dad, this is your oldest daughter. And I'd say, how do you know you're my oldest daughter? And we go through our little things and we crack up and laugh. She says, you know I'm the oldest. And this morning was different. The phone call I got from my grandson, he says, Granddad, I can't get my mama to wake up. And it was different because I know even though he wasn't it wasn't registering completely with him. Give me 1 second.
yeah.
I could tell that it was just in his voice that he knew that this was different. She had suffered from seizures and stuff, and he knew how to identify that, how to call for help. And I knew that he can tell, and I could tell in his voice that this was different. And so fortunate, one of my childhood friends, I mean, literally childhood from riding tricycles and big wheels all of our lives, all the way through high school playing football. His name is Pops. So I call Pops, who happens to live literally on the opposite corner from Teresa. And I say, hey, brother, can you go down the house? Jeremiah says he can't get Teresa to wake up. He says, no problem. I'm already walking out the door to drop the grandkids off. I'll stop there now. So within about 3 or 4 minutes, he calls me back. And he says, "Little brother, she's gone." So I immediately started making phone calls to gather all of my kids together there in Indianapolis before social media could catch up to me. I don't want all these kids trying to drive and race up to Gary. And So I gathered them all up, and I get them on a helicopter, and I fly everybody up here. That was probably one of the toughest things, and so I don't know, and I apologize because it's more personal to me than career wise. That was the thing the most that challenged us as a family to really dig deep in our faith and know that this was in God's hands. If that makes any sense. Career wise, um, in 1995, the governor sent troopers into Gary by way of the request from the mayor at the time to help patrol the streets of Gary. Now, the mission was terrible, but that's another topic. It didn't go well, in my opinion, because we didn't do some things from the state police perspective that we should have did and when it comes to communication. But about 2 weeks into that 90-day exercise or that mission, Gary police was chasing a gentleman for trying to stab his wife. Now, this is 30 years ago, and a police chase ensues. Well, technology hadn't caught up to where we are now with
Right, so there's
radio.
no body cams. We don't have cell
No,
phones.
no, the cell phones were very limited. We were just then starting to transition from beepers, okay, and pagers.
Right. Okay.
So we were just transitioning, had a little bit of cell phone use, but you wasn't talking a lot because, right, the packages didn't allow you to talk a lot.
Mm.
But 2 weeks into that, we're chasing the bad guy, and let me reframe that out of respect for this young man and his family. We were chasing a subject. Gary was chasing him. I wasn't actually in the chase, but we were just deploying down into Gary from our police briefing before starting to patrol the streets of Gary that early afternoon. It was October the 22nd, to be exact. It was a very calm, very pleasant, almost like spring life day. And I remember saying to myself, man, it's a really nice day. It's going to be a good day today. And and so they chased this guy, and we're in Gary, and Mercy Hospital was still open at the time. And so I'm just tracking it by radio traffic. Now, the challenge there is that radio traffic, well, a lot of times because the police departments were on different radio systems. So a lot of this is going on by telephone. So as you can imagine, the communication is delayed when you're in a police pursuit at 100 miles an hour. Things are happening really, really fast. So me and this individual that was running from us met head on. His speed was clocked when we met head on at 111 miles an hour.
Oh
I
my
was
God.
probably, with my emergency lights on, I was doing considerably less because I'm traveling through traffic lights. And so me and that young
And
man
this is
met.
all in the middle of Gary, like in an urban environment.
Yeah, so we're at where we meet head on. He's coming against traffic. I'm going eastbound on Fifth Avenue, as you know, is a one-way going eastbound. He's coming westbound at 100 plus miles an hour. We meet head on at Fifth and Jackson, to be exact. And unfortunately, he succumbs to his injuries there at the scene. I'm trapped in my police car. My car is on fire. And there's tons of police there, right? And so everybody's running, and I can hear the noise, and I hear people running, grabbing fire extinguishers, trying to get the fire out. And they're running out of extinguishers. They're trying to keep the fire away from my person with these fire extinguishers. And airbags wasn't as prevalent. That's how I got
Did
this
you hit your
go-to.
head?
Well, that didn't hit my head, but that's how, if you notice, I have a gold tooth in my mouth, but that's because of the
I
airbag.
have never
Was
was never gonna be rude enough to ask.
the impact was so significant that my feet went through the floorboard of the police car. So my feet was literally resting on the ground,
Snap.
like Scooby Doo type stuff. So literally,
Please.
so my ankles and everything was broken and all twisted and mangled out.
Yeah.
And so they're struggling, and I hear people running and scrambling around me, trying to figure out how to get me out of this crumbled up police car. And I feel somebody touch me on the back on my shoulder. It says, "We're gonna get you out of there." And I'm saying to myself, I said, "Well, God, I don't know if I'm dead or not because I can hear people and I can feel people touching me. So I assume maybe I'm still alive."
Mhm.
And so about that time, there's a force where they pull me across the back of the driver's seat out the back window of the police car away from the fire because the car is all crumbled in. And so they said first they didn't know if I would live. or could survive through the night because of all of the internal injuries and bleeding. And then they that by middle of the night they said, well, he'll live, we believe, but we don't believe he'll be able to walk again. Because they couldn't really
God,
discern
poor wife.
all of the injuries to my legs and stuff. And then they said, okay, well, he'll live, but we don't know if he can walk again. And if he can walk, he probably won't be able to run. Well, there is a God because it took about a year and a half, but not only did I learn how to walk again, I learned how to run again and actually was able to return back to work again. And that was 30 years ago.
Wow.
So that is my testimony. You don't know what death is until you just try and figure it
I
out.
don't even know what to say because I mean that's such a profound experience. It's so easy to say that people in law enforcement know the job and they sign up for this and all that, but I don't think anybody really signs up for that. Like so
No, not
all I
quite.
can say is hats off to you and thank you for your service because
Thank you.
well, I really don't know what to say. I've never heard a story like that in my life. If I go to work and it doesn't go well, I go home and I'm a little crabby. I'm not having people ram into me at 150 miles an hour in the pursuit of my job and then being pulled out of about by the jaws of life while flames come at me. Wow. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it was
and
quite an experience. So awesome. So I
and
digress
now
on
I
that.
know where the gold tooth came from. Thank you for not
Yeah,
thank you for satisfying my curiosity. I'm sure you get a
yeah,
lot of
yeah,
questions about that.
yeah. That airbag split my teeth in half and broke my
That's
jaw.
bonkers. I'm not gonna be able to get that. I'm gonna be every time I watch Scooby Doo now, every time,
Yeah,
I'm gonna be thinking
real
of you.
life. But the car crumbled around me, and it gave me just enough space to live. Of course, I had my seatbelt on, broken ribs, you name it. It was there. A lot of broken parts, but
I'm surprised was a part that wasn't broken.
it was quite a bit. Like I say, my face, my jaws, my mouth, my feet, my legs, my ACLs, PCLs, because part of my upper part of my legs is still, mind you, resting inside of the vehicle.
Oh, I've learned so much about you, Jerry. I had no idea that you'd faced this level of serious issues. You've been
Yeah,
tested up, down, right, and left, and obviously somebody had a
yeah,
plan for you. Um,
yeah. And that's the way I look at it. I
that's
really do.
character making stuff you're talking about here.
It is. It is. I mean, there's officers that deal with these situations on a daily basis. And I just happen to be one of those that have a testimony here in my career to share on a lighter note that I'm sure would probably make most folks say, man, you were lucky. And that is I got a chance to sit for over 5 hours, just shy of 6 hours, and do an interview with Congressman John Lewis. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Eat your heart out. Yeah, yeah. So
Oh
that
my
was an
God.
amazing, amazing opportunity and experience, and it was all because of weather. So my boss, then Superintendent Doug Carter, was, and our number two, my boss, the Colonel French, which was number two for the state police, were getting ready to fly out. We were working on a cultural diversity training video for the state police. And in this training that was going to be mandatory for all troopers and all of everybody for the state police, train
And you,
civilians.
if I'm not mistaken, Jerry, you were instrumental in developing this program, correct?
I did. I was instrumental in developing that program as well as our implicit bias training program as well. So I traveled from here to Virginia to Miami and somewhere else I forgot. I was at three different cities that I went to, law enforcement academies that were doing implicit bias training and that were considered to be the leaders in the topic. So I traveled, the state police sent me to go meet with those instructors and learn from their curriculum and their program so that I could bring that back so that our training division could then put on a training for us. So I was there. So those two, Doug Carter, the superintendent, and the colonel, the number two guy, were supposed to fly out to go do an interview with Congressman Lewis. And that interview, that video was going to be a part of this training. And the training is, when I tell you, I don't just say that it's good, but it's awesome. I'm telling you, it would floor you because it was so interactive and it was really tough because, as you know, the state police is predominantly a white agency. There's not many people of color on our agency. And so it was a really, really good, robust training that forced uncomfortable conversations with our agency and our officers that really helped people understand that culturally we're different, but we should be able to respect our differences and learn how to treat people with dignity and respect, regardless to their culture or the color of their skin. So they called me at the last minute. I'm in Indianapolis. They're getting ready to jump on a plane, but the weather turns bad and the pilot can't fly. So they called me while I'm heading back from my office in Indy, and they said, "Hey, Jerry, it looks like the weather is good for you up in Chicago. Can you jump on a flight and go?" Because our ground crew, our videographer and our public information officer and all that stuff, they had already driven out there because they needed to take all of the equipment. And so these two guys were the superintendent going to fly out. Weather was bad. So I checked. They have his assistant check. He says, "Yep, you could fly out." He says, "Can you fly out tonight?" It's about 4 o'clock in the afternoon. And so I did. So I said, "No problem." And so I drove on back up here, grabbed my uniform and took off to Chicago, jumped on an airplane, went out, got there just in time. So I met with John Lewis, and he just greeted us with the warmest heart, and it was just an amazing opportunity. And so from the state police, there's myself, there's two other captains, Ruben Marte, Ruben Marte is retired from the state police now. He's actually the first non-white Monroe County sheriff. He's up for election now for his second term. And so we're in Congressman Lewis's office. And when I tell you just amazing, it was amazing. The artifacts, the coffee mugs from John F. K. Kennedy and Martin Luther King and two sets of coffee cups that was autographed by him and Martin Luther King, John F. K., and so many other folks, civil rights leaders, that it was just amazing. So you can eat your heart out because it was really amazing. And here it
No.
was. He was just a small stature man. He wasn't tall, maybe about 5 feet, maybe 5'2". He was short compared to most of us. He had very soft spoken unless he was speaking, if that makes any sense. And he treated us with like royalty, like dignity. I mean, here it is, a man that was on the front lines, one of the authors of what we know now to be Bloody Sunday of 1965, March 7th of 1965 over the Pettus Bridge, right? He's there. He's the one in those videos. He's on the front line. He's the one getting his skull cracked open right there on camera, and yet had every reason to not like or maybe dislike the police, whether we were black or white, and yet he treated us with the utmost respect. We only on camera for about 45 minutes, so the other 5 hours was just talking with him, chatting with him, learning about the different things in his office, why he does what he do, and he quoted some of the things about good trouble, and so we got all of that, and it was such an amazing opportunity. And so I'll close with this and tell you, so the young lady is his assistant, is putting his makeup on before we go officially on camera,
Mhm.
and so when she puts the makeup on she's putting makeup on his head, and he has a shaved head. And so we look, and of course, he says, "You want to know why she's putting all of this makeup on my head?" Well, so yes, sir. And he says, "Because you see he had a significant indentation and crack through his skull." And he says, I always have them put makeup or foundation to cover that up because I don't want it to be a reminder to the United States and to the country of how cruel we can be to each other as human beings sometimes. And you want to talk about a drop the mic, mouth dropping moment. And it was again, just an amazing opportunity, amazing experience. And this was probably about a year-ish before he passed away. Maybe, I don't think it was quite 2 years, but definitely a little over a year before he passed away. So an amazing opportunity, amazing experience. So if you know anything about that nonviolence, Pettus Bridge, whole assembly, the whole march, for what? Voters, for people to have a right to vote. And eat your heart out. It was amazing.
Geez, I am so happy that you had that experience because it
Oh,
sounds like
it
you were
really,
exactly right, the right person to be there.
it was just the way God had.
He had a plan there for you.
He
Um,
did.
so let's close with what's the one thing you want the voters in Lake County to understand about the sheriff's office and why you're uniquely suited to lead it.
I am uniquely qualified because I bring a breadth of and a level of exposure and experience in the law enforcement community that no one else can match. And I say that very humbly and respectfully, but I tell you this here. So, in my 35 years or so in law enforcement, because I always give my foundation as a correction officer with the Lake County Sheriff Department as my base, because it taught me things that you can't learn on the streets as a police officer. How to deal with conflict, how to deal with managing and de-escalating situations. No guns involved. How do you talk to people? So it really set the foundation for me of how to treat people when I did go out on the road as a trooper. And then I've been with the state police now. I'm into my third year with the state police. And I spent my first 10 years as a road trooper here in Lake County. I was fortunate enough to come back home. I didn't get sent to another part of the state. And I literally was able to be a trooper right in my own community. That was awesome. While in that first 10 years, worked as a community oriented policing officer for the state police, thinking when I got that position, I was going to be able to do community oriented policing in my own neighborhood, right? Not, they said, oh, we didn't tell you. Your area of responsibility is going to be, hear me out, Newton County, Jasper County, and North Judson. Yeah, right?
Oh,
So I'm like, okay. So off I go because that's my mission. And again, now this is probably 30, 27, 28 years ago.
you'd stand out in a crowd down there.
I did, and I did, and I did. So I get down there and I said, okay, where do I even begin? And I said, well, what would I do if I was in my own community, in my own neighborhood? I just started knocking on doors and walking into the cafes, and I started talking to people and I started developing relationships. And one by one, that those communities embraced me and I embraced them likewise. And we began to solve community issues within their realms, no matter how rural it was, etc. And so it taught me how to work through those barriers when people might not at the time see you as an equal or one of them because of this color of your skin. And so I take pride in that. Many of those same people in those same communities, Roseline, North Jessen, we still communicate and talk literally to the day. I still go down. They still come up here now to Lake County and visit with me on holidays. And it just became that type of thing. So understanding how to meet people where they're at, whether I'm in an urban environment of Gary, Hammond, or East Chicago, or the most rural environments of Stark and Pulaski counties and Jasper and the rest. And so then in that same time frame, I got assigned to a Northwest Indiana gang-led, FBI-led task force. And so there, I spent that time working on violent crimes related, of course, to gangs, but whatever that nexus was. So we did, homicide investigations. So our unit was required to go out on all homicide calls for the Gary Police Department. And so we
Mm,
went out to assist them on all of those calls. So, and at the time, this was about that era of the murder capital of the world. The
okay.
extinction. So there's a lot of homicides going on at the time. I went out on a lot of homicides. We participated, helped out, did interviews, collect information. And if it was too overwhelming for the police department itself, our unit would then take lead on those investigations. And so I led several of those homicide investigations. So I understand the dynamics and the complexities of homicide investigations, which is critical in law enforcement, right? And then drug work I did mostly because most of our team, except about two or three of us, was all white federal agents. So when we did
Hmm.
drug buy, I was the one that usually did most of the hand-to-hand buys and that kind of stuff. So doing large transactions, everything from street level drug deals to multi kilos of drug deals from here to Miami, wherever it took us from Gary, and in some cases Miami and other New York and that kind of stuff. And so understanding the complexities and the dynamics of that world of drugs and undercover buys and that kind of stuff, and bringing that breadth of understanding and experience. And then eventually, I was promoted to the rank of sergeant. And then at that role, I started working out of Indianapolis in our fiscal division, and this is why that it's important here now because I wrote grants and did our specification writing and contract writing for the state police and the state of Indiana because we started transitioning to make that a one pot process. And so after doing that for a while, then I got tasked with working in human resources and said, hey, we need you to help out here. So I
Good
spent a year
gravy.
working in the human resource section. And my primary role at that time was to create or to update all of our hiring processes for it to be a trooper. So I worked on that in a modified process for what we then called a lateral program, basically where other police officers could come to the state police with a modified program. So I was responsible for doing that. So understanding those complexities at that level as a sheriff or chief of police, it really is good to have that level of understanding of those processes because of the struggles we have now today with recruiting and the likes. And so then after that, I got assigned to go work with Department of Corrections for a year. And my job there was to work with the executive staff of Department of Corrections to create training programs and investigatory program protocols for riot situations, violent crimes, or violence against inmate to inmate, and those types of things, and what that looks like, and to include what they use now is they have like a police program. They have an arms component of the Department of Correction. So we worked on putting that platform together that they use today as well. And if that wasn't enough, then I got tapped and I says, okay, then I got promoted to the rank of first sergeant. And then I served for that position, I served in our internal investigation section. And I did internal investigations for several years all across the state to include EEO violations. And then after spending several years there, then I got promoted to the rank of lieutenant. And then and with that rank, I got an opportunity to come back home and I became the first African American commander for the state police down here in Lowell. As the commander, you're the face of the state police. You are that chief in that environment. So I had to work with all municipalities in my 7 counties, the sheriffs and the 7 sheriffs, all of the police chiefs, all of the town marshals, all of those, all of our federal agencies, the HIDA programs, the FBI, DEA, ATF. You got to work with everybody across the board, and you're that singular point of contact for the state police and throughout the state for them. And so understanding how to bring those resources and bring collaboration and people to a table, I think is vitally important for that sheriff position to be able to get people to the table to work for something bigger than themselves and to bring resources to everybody, no matter whether I'm up in Gary or I'm in the most rural communities of Stark and Pulaski County, how to bring resources to each community individually and collectively to be a force multiplier. And that's what my job was to do. And so I'm used to leveraging and collaborating with agencies to bring the best possible outcome from a public safety standpoint and others. And I managed for 12 years over 400, nearly as my former boss said in his interview, uh, endorsing me a couple of weeks ago, nearly $500 million in daily assets and the budgets related to it. So, Tracy, what I tell you is that no one has that breadth of understanding and that level of experience because this is not hypothetical. This is real life experience, meaning that I didn't just look at a budget. I had to create the budget. I was the one that represented the governor and the superintendent in front of the legislative body to go and say, hey, we need $10 million for this, that, or the other. My job was to put that budget together, put that presentation together, and go in front of that finance committee and justify why we needed to move in a certain direction, to make a purchase, to build a new construction building like we did down here in Lowell. One of the things I'm most proud of is that in that 12 years, not one penny, not one asset was ever misplaced or misspent or misused under my watch. And that's important because we're dealing with that issue right now. And that's a
Yeah.
real life issue. I can hit the ground day one. This is not hypothetical. I had to talk about or think about what I'm going to do from a crime fighting perspective because I've been doing that now for the last 14 years, or actually last 17 years, counting my district commander days with the state police. That's the difference, and that's what people will be getting. And they'll get someone that will bring that same level of professionalism, accountability, and transparency that I've done and been employed with for the last 30, now into my 33rd year with the state police.
We have a few minutes left. Jerry, tell the good folks where they can find you.
They can find me at JerryWilliamsForSheriff.com. We also are on social media under the same name. We encourage and invite everyone to get on there and take a look at our story, our journey, and why we believe that we are uniquely prepared to go in day one and begin to change these things that need to be addressed within the sheriff department and bring the level of professionalism and accountability and transparency that the community deserves and the employees, including the civilian, the police officers, and the correction officers, so desperately deserve.
Well, I will be posting links to all of these things on our website. Jerry, I have to tell you, this has probably been the most fascinating conversation I have had with a politician easily. I mean, I knew you had an impressive resume, but I certainly didn't realize the full breadth of it. So thank you so much for sharing so much with us
No,
today.
thank you.
And folks, you heard the man. Early voting is still open until Monday at noon. And then after that, you get to vote at your precinct. Election day is almost here. So get ready, Lake County. Off you go.
Absolutely.
Bye.